St. Vincent and the Grenadines. WEFM is SVG.
Minutes on to 11 o'clock here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You're locked on to WEFM 99.9, the Clean Fresh Sound, and this is your Is Your Turn program. Remember, Is Your Turn is an interactive program, so the numbers to call are 457-9997 if you're calling from a local landline, 532-9997 if you're calling from a digital cell phone, and you can also send us a message or call us on a WhatsApp at 457-9997. The Is Your Turn program is being hosted by Mr. Cecil Ryan, Mr. Philbert, and Mr. Joel Providence. Good morning to you, Cecil.
Good morning to you, Karen, and good morning to Pijan, and good morning to Terrell, and good morning to all our listeners on all the platforms. We are happy to be with you another Sunday morning, and it's a bright and sunny and upful morning out there. I'll let Pijan tell you the rest of it. Pijan, over to you.
This is the named after the sun, and the sun is definitely out in all its glory. I will say good morning to you, Joel, Kieran. Good morning to all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and all persons listening to us around the world. We know that perhaps we have the widest listening audience at this time, and we appreciate you, and we hope that you will engage us in our discussion today. And as usual, we should anticipate a lively discussion on many issues, making the news, many issues of interest. Now I'll hand you over to my former teacher. I think he was 23 years old when he taught me at that time.
Okay. But by implication, this means I'm 22. Obviously, I'm not 23 years older than you are. So. But maybe by attitude and everything else, maybe that's it. Good morning, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Good morning, Cecil and Kieran. And good morning to all listeners, whether you're in St. Vincent and the Grenadines at this particular time, or you're in New York, Toronto, London, or elsewhere in the Caribbean, Tortola, in the Virgin Islands. Good morning to you, Mr. Andrews. It's a great day, as Pijan mentioned. We have lots of stuff to talk about. There have been quite a few events, most of them positive. One in particular that is a bit worrisome, and then we certainly have to improve where that is concerned. But all in all, overall, we have great things to talk about. I just want to say, before I turn it back over to you, Cecil, I just want to commend the Maritime Authority and the Coast Guard for their kind and very professional assistance with regard to an activity which took place yesterday at sea, which required the intervention of the Ministry of Public Health Department, of the Maritime Authority, and the Coast Guard, and they were all very professional in their duties, and made me feel as if St. Vincent and Grenadines, where these things are concerned, that we are in a very good place. And I would also like to close in saying, but there are quite a few persons, Cecil and Pijan, who would meet you from time to time and say, well, they listen to the program and so forth, and they have positive things to say. They may have suggestions and so on, which is always appreciated. And just last evening at the handing over ceremony at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites, there's a lady behind me asked me whether or not if I am Joel Providence, issue at hand. So I am defined now by being on the issue at hand program rather than my involvement in teaching and at ECGC, at Careers and so forth. And so forth. But I would just like to say a very special good morning to Miss Care. Thank you very much for inquiring, and great to have met you.
Like that spot was a meeting point last night. Other people, including one I think she's my first or second cousin. She's listening even as we speak now in Georgetown. She listens. She told me. I introduced myself to her because I was standing next to her. Well, she first said, "Oh, you're Ryan." So I said, "You're standing next to Ryan." So I said, "Oh yeah." And then we went on, and she told me I'm present in her living room every Sunday. I presume on Facebook. So yes, the word is passing around, Joel. In fact, we had an activity. Pigeon and I attended an activity yesterday and the day before yesterday. Training activity, actually, Pigeon will tell you more about it. But it was reassuring and good to hear management here at WEFM agreeing that this is he said this is the most popular program on radio. So it was reassuring to hear that, and as you have indicated, and as I have said, there are people around the world, as a matter of fact, who listen to us regularly, and that the number seems to be increasing day by day. So we have a responsibility not only to make sure we say things that people would like to hear and things that are factual, but also those persons who call the program and wish to express a view. They too, we have a responsibility to make sure that they too say things that are responsible and factual and not commercy, but factual, and also to be responsible in terms of the amount of time they take on the phone to make a particular point or to make their points. And in fact, I'm sure Bijan would agree that we now have a revised time allocation for callers who've just called in at random. We agree that they must give consideration to others who are listening and others who would wish to call our program. So we're not going to allow people to just go on and on and on and on and talk. We're going to change from today. So we just want persons to be aware of that. Of course, we encourage people to call, and we appreciate when they call, but be mindful and be considerate. So, Pijan?
Yes, Joel, Cecil is speaking about a training session organized by management of WEFM, held on Friday and Saturday, and facilitated by a man whom I refer to as an institution in broadcasting, that is the Venerable Win Calendar of CBC fame. I was personally touched to be able to be in the same room with him, because as an avid listener of radio, I could say that I basically grew up listening to Win Calendar, and it was a good session. The part-time, full-time, and other persons such as ourselves, management were all involved in the training session. And it was good to hear some tidbits about broadcasting, how you use your voice, how you deal with callers, for instance, the difference between reading the news and presenting the news. I've never thought about that. And not just the news, but generally how you present yourself, present information on radio. And we want to thank the management of WEFM for the opportunity. Thank Win Calendar. And it was a pleasure to see so many young upcoming broadcasters in our midst. I didn't realize there were so many persons associated with WEFM on the on-air side of it. So, and as an old man myself, it was really good to be back in a classroom setting after so many decades to engage in this kind of training.
Yeah, Peach, and I endorse all that you've said. Only to add that I'm impressed with the way management approach the station here. It's not the first time. I attended sometime previously a session conducted by Win as well. And I think before that there was one more. So training, as far as management here is concerned, is an important aspect of broadcasting. And I really want to commend the management for appreciating the importance of training, that people don't go behind the mic simply because they can talk, but because they know this certain principles about training. Even if we as moderators, we too have to be trained, Pijan, and Calendar made that point very clear, and we appreciate the points that he made in respect of the importance of training. It makes a difference. Even as we accommodate calls, he also went into that and giving some tidbits in terms of how what's the best way of dealing or handling calls which come in. So all in all, it was a great experience for me for the 2 days, Friday and Saturday. And I was happy that the youngsters, they themselves just took it in and asked so many questions. And truly, I'm very pleased and impressed with the approach that management here is taking with respect to ensuring that the radio station remains top. Yeah, Joel?
Unfortunately, that I couldn't attend because of the same arrangement that I had to deal with and so on, burials and other stuff and so forth. It was just simply impossible for me to, or impracticable for me to be here. But I heard some of the positive things, and I knew what was expected, and I do trust that even though that I was not in attendance, that I would still be able to feed off the vibes from you guys. And if there's a takeaway and so on, that these are the takeaways of the 2 days that I myself would be able to implement and pay close attention to my own deficiencies and so on, and add to the building of Issue at Hand and to the radio station as a whole.
Yeah. Actually, there's a document that was circulated for the training. I think you might have a soft copy of it.
Yes.
We do have soft and hard copies. Yeah. So, and it presents itself as a useful reference document. And as a matter of fact, I remember the last time I experienced a similar training, I still had that document that he used then, and this one, for sure. I personally going to be referring to it from time to time, because that's what is required. You have to refresh your own approach and your own knowledge on things. So yes, it was good. And again, commendation to management, Mr. Williams, or the Williamses in particular, and Mr.
Two things struck me. One is the story of the creation of WEFM.
Yes.
And Win Calendar's role in that process. The other thing that I note is countless, can't count them on one hand, young broadcasters pass through WEFM.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place now. And they got the start here. Again, many of them were trained by WEFM with Win Calendar as a resource person. So those two things struck me about the event.
It's true.
Yeah, just wanted to add that I was in part involved in the establishment of WEFM going back now is about 26 years, I think it is.
A long time.
It's been a long time.
yeah.
And I do recall, even where we are right now, I do recall when Jules was putting up this structure and the cables were being run amongst St. Andrew episodes and so on. I was involved in preparing the programming and so on, including the issue at hand was a name that I had come up with for this and there's so many others, but there's so many young broadcasters now who are, well, they're not so young anymore. They're 26 years later, but they eventually ended up at all the other radio stations, or most of the other radio stations in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, or in media, or some related type of business or career as a result of being here at WEFM. There's some good things to reflect on. And yeah, I even remember with the selection of 99.9, even the frequency and so on, what was involved. But it's great. So anyhow, congratulations to Jules Williams in particular. I was on a boat yesterday, as I mentioned, and the boat captain was speaking so effusively, praising Jules Williams so effusively and so on, about his contribution to life, industry, and also not just in terms of broadcasting in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And sometimes you may see him as someone who is very unassuming and so forth, but his contribution is significant.
Two other things, Cecil.
Of course.
Question was posed by a young broadcaster. Is WEFM a ULP station? And thankfully we got the answer, an emphatic no. And several examples were given to demonstrate that that is not the case. And I like the point made by Jules Williams, that he is a businessman, and you would invite any political party to, once they could advertise, whatever the case to be, they have opportunities here at WEFM. And the other point that came out is the regular contribution of the Prime Minister to Isiotan, and the tendency for him to go beyond the stipulated time. It was made clear that that is an arrangement between the management of WEFM and the Prime Minister that he can call at any time, given his position.
As Prime Minister.
As Prime Minister, he could call at any time to share whatever information he has with the public. And the other point is the opposition, and in relation to WEFM, now to Isiotan, we want to say again that we have tried on several occasions to get the lead of the opposition on the program to interact with us and with the public. We have been unsuccessful. We are going to do it again, but this time take a different approach. And again, these issues came out of the training session, and that's why I commend management again for having that session. It gave you a chance to reflect on what you do and how you do it, and to improve where you think you can improve.
I certainly, Pigeon, and again, big shout up and thumbs up to the management here at WEFM. And the thing about it, the management doesn't interfere, by the way. We need to make that point. And Jules himself has said that on many occasions, that he doesn't interfere with the programming, basically. So he doesn't tell us who to get on or who to get off or that kind of thing. Management is not involved insofar as the running of the program. Certainly Isiotan is concerned. So we just want to make those points clear and to remind all our listeners that we appreciate you. That you know that this is the premier program. Well, it's perhaps also the premier station, radio station in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Certainly the premier talk show program here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I dare say some people have said the Eastern Caribbean. So we take that too. So feel free to interact with us. You may not like your position may be different from ours, and it may be a robust interaction, but yet we appreciate you. And we encourage and invite you to call us when you have a point to make of your own or in reaction. You heard said, and let's talk about it and let's clarify. Certainly we don't accommodate gossip. We don't further gossip. We don't further things that are meant to create alarm, cause alarm. We don't do that. Something you may have heard on other radio stations, which we think is going to engender alarm. We don't further that. So other than that, it's a clean, fresh sound. That's WEFM, and we echo that in our programming on Issue at Hand. And we have other things to get into, but in the meantime, I just want to remind us about today, a beautiful day in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
It's a beautiful morning. I think I'll go outside for a while. Just smile. Just taking some clean, fresh air. Oh, get inside. If the weather's fine and you got the time, it's your chance to wake up and plan another brand new day. Either way, it's a beautiful morning. Each bird keeps singing his own song. So long, I've got to be on my way now. No one just hanging around. I got to cover ground. You couldn't keep it down. It just ain't no good if the sun shines and you're still inside.
So yeah, it's a beautiful morning, and those of us who have to cover ground, some of us have covered ground already, and some of us are in the process of covering ground, and some of us will be covering ground later. In any event, it's a beautiful morning in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Joel, I covered some ground this morning out at the Vince Beach track. I don't know if you and Peter did anything.
This morning, no, but on Friday I was there.
Okay.
I was also there on Thursday, despite all the rains and so forth. And earlier in the week as well, 3 times this week at that track.
Okay. So you covered ground then?
I covered ground.
Sorry.
But, just for whatever it is, we'll do it quickly. So I spoke with some person and said, well, why the numbers are dwindling? And they said they don't find the time to walk as the daylight, sunlight goes down by 5:30, 5:35.
Yeah.
And by the time they get home from work and they make the change and so on, it's already too dark to get out to Diamond. And so the numbers, both at the Ardersville tarmac and at the Diamond track, the numbers have dwindled at this time of the year.
There's just so as I was about to leave this morning, the numbers, there's a huge number of people out there this morning. It was sizable. Some people were there in the wee hours as myself, but later on a lot of people came on, and it was good to see that. I believe, Joel, maybe from December 21st, I think, when the length of the day,
shortest day of the year,
right, is the 21st, and then from the 22nd it starts increasing. So maybe you might see an increasing number then. But usually, well, as we know, 21st is the beginning of winter, properly speaking, and it is the shortest day in the year. So, yeah.
Cecil and Peter, I think that we have some very key issues to discuss. And some big things to cover, and I expect that we will have some one or two calls from
Yeah.
key personnel as well within the
Mm-hmm.
government apparatus.
Well,
and
for
others.
sure, we as I indicated, we expect to hear from Minister of Finance Camilo Gonzalez, particularly in respect of the activity. Well, the Holiday Inn Express and Suites opening, handing over, I should say. Sorry. And Joel, you have somebody else?
Yes, and also we're hoping to. Well, we heard discussion last evening, and it was also on in one of the online newspapers regarding to what I consider to be a significant, potentially transformative agreement, which involving the governments of Venezuela and St. Vincent and the Grenadines under the rubric of the Agro Alba initiative or agreement. And it speaks to a significant amount of land for agricultural purposes. And I assume, consequent upon that, they may even have something related to agro-processing. But I do believe that it is best that we hear from the minister, our Minister of Agriculture, who was intimately involved in and he actually signed, he's a signatory to the agreement on behalf of the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines. And hopefully maybe around midday or so, we might be able to get a few minutes of his time, the Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Sabota Cecil, as well. We have some other things that we can just slip in as well that is important to talk about. I would want to say a few words about tourism, but I prefer to wait until the Minister Gonzalez calls in and so forth. But if you would allow me just to mention that.
Before you go on, I
Yeah.
just want to, somebody's asking to give an update on the state of the grass at the Sovinci Beach Stadium, Plainfield. Perhaps after you said, I'll give this update.
Oh, so you're
Yeah, I'm giving it to you so you could.
Oh, okay. Well,
Quickly, back to the Minister of Agriculture.
yes.
When he calls in, he needs to tell us whether it is true that he just graduated with a degree in agriculture from the UWI Open Campus.
Oh, okay. I did see that.
Yeah, well, we'll direct the questions to him. Yes,
Yeah.
well, certainly,
Which
and
is quite interesting.
and yeah, okay, and Minister Gonzalez as well. He is as Candyman Macmillan said last evening that sometimes he works hard, works long, not
And works secretly.
works.
What I mean,
secretly or stealthily sometimes.
Yeah, all right. Stealthily is a better word.
Yes,
I'm more
and so
prepared.
forth. And then, so equally as he can comment on the Holiday Inn Express and Suites, he certainly can comment on that issue as well as the Diamond.
Oh, the
Soviets
track.
into
Yeah.
and so on. So
Yeah.
you can kill several birds
Yeah,
with one stone.
Yeah. Well, I think in that case, you're suggest I'll hold us back. I'll hold back my response to this question until he comes in, and if he doesn't, then I'll get back to giving this update.
Some time ago, several weeks ago, we spoke to the recognition and the accolades being bestowed on Renwick Rose for his contribution to political, social, and even economic education here in St. Vincent and Grenadines and beyond our shores and so on. And he has been doing through his writings and through other activity and activism and so forth for, I would like to think, at least 50 years.
At least, but I'm sure it's much
At
many
least
more than that.
At least 50 years, and that is a long time to be. And actually now, in addition to what we've just heard about him and said to him and heard from him, is that we now have the global virtual launch of a 3-volume collection by Renwick Rose himself, and it's entitled Reflections. And we invite as many Vincentians as possible to make the effort to join the discussion on this Wednesday, November the 20th, beginning at 8 p.m. our time, Atlantic Standard Time. And it's on YouTube. We'll be able to, you can get the link. The link can be is made available through the Searchlight newspaper. There will be others. There are many ways in which you can get the link over the next couple of days before Wednesday and so on, so that you can join the discussion on YouTube. But I think it's a very important discussion. The panelists include Dr. Gary Denny. Persons know Gary Denny, an important son of the soil. Also known as Grubby, a noted historian, and just happens to be the brother of someone in the studio, not you, Cecil.
I know it's not me.
And then you have Nelsie Robinson Hazel. Again, persons know Nelsie Robinson and her involvement, particularly whether it's in gender affairs or just social and political affairs for a number of years, maybe almost as long as, or even longer than Renwick Rose. And we also, by the way, as an aside, heard from her son, who spoke at an important event in St. Kitts a few days ago. And then we have Dr. Cleve Scott, a fellow Montrosian, and he is participating, but also a noted historian and lecturer at the University of the West Indies. And of course, the last panel will be Renwick Rose himself. So this is Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. On YouTube, and like I mentioned, the link will be shared. You can certainly go to Searchlight's Facebook page or Instagram, but the link will be shared certainly for all to join over the next couple of days. And the moderator would be Dr. Atiba Weza, a former grammar school colleague of mine. He resides in the United States, but he would be the one who would be moderating the program as well. Now, it's important. What today's the 3-volume collection about? One speaks to women's struggles for justice and equity, and talks about development, equity, and the dignity of women. The second volume speaks about reclaiming our independence and defending the democracy, and talks about, in the social context, the struggles that we've had to undergo and our rightful claim to govern our homeland as we would have envisaged. And then the third volume basically is entitled, goes on the rubric of We Grandfathers Back Pay, a struggle for reparatory justice. It deals with reparations and so forth. And the analysis within the 3-volume collection as well, by Dr. Atiba Weza as well, Gary Denny, Ambassador Rhonda King, Nelsie Robinson Hazel, as well as Chief Justice Adrian Sanders. I think it's very important works. I think that we should try our best to put our hands on copies. They are available. They will be available on Amazon and elsewhere. And more details will be shared certainly on Wednesday and before Wednesday, and subsequently, as well as how you can get copies of these of this 3-volume collection. And the price is quite decent, $45 for a single volume. Okay, so $45 gives you some important work from an important citizen of this land. So that's it with regard. But I also want to take the opportunity. And maybe
But before you go,
go ahead.
Would it be available in hard copies at local bookstores?
The information I have doesn't directly say so, but I do believe that it will be. I can't see it not being available in hard copies locally. Paperback available. Oh yes, paperback versions are available at local bookstores and Amazon Books, Searchlight, and also available on Amazon Kindle. Right. So, we have a few bookstores around, and by the way, there are also some other works still available, written by Vincentian authors, and they are available. I just met a former colleague of mine, Peggy Carr, who resides in Taiwan, and she's mentioned about one of her works that she has put out, and it's available at the Jujube bookstore in Kingstown. So there works out, and I just also wanted to mention also some recent publications also featured in the newspaper, and I would like to talk a little bit more about it next week with your kind support by Andre Aiton and Carolyn Boops Sardine, who did the illustrations. And there are a couple of them, and the one I have in my possession right now is entitled Telling the Tao and Seeing the Wisdom. But I want us to be able to speak a little bit more authoritatively on what is Tao and what is the Tao philosophy and so forth. Our Andre himself should be in a position to share with us and so on. And when he does so, you can truly have a great appreciation of the quality of work that he has put out here of a Vincentian who has lived in different places across the region, traveled the world, and he too has made his contribution to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, particularly in the world of finance. But his literary skills and his understanding and appreciation of philosophy and impact on the minds of people and so forth is important, and his publications are also available. So, and there's more, as well, Cecil and Pigeon. So they're coming out and showing Vincentians are showing their talent and so forth. So we can put them out, and these are fantastic gifts that person can share gift to their friends at Christmas time. As Christmas is coming up, go to the bookstores, buy a book, anyone that we just mentioned, or there are others and so forth, and share with a friend and so forth. It's a good time to be a Vincentian.
Joel, could you share a little bit more about the Aiton family?
Before you go on to that, Pigeon, let me just, somebody is asking, but I think it's a tactical way of reminding us. GM, the person saying, is Gary Denny the same person as Dr. Michael Denny? So I presume
yes.
the person is implying that we should be calling him Dr. Michael Denny. I don't know. I just assume that. But yes,
he's popularly known as Michael. Michael is his name. But I think officially he carries Gary Denny.
Okay, all right. Yes, but you were about to say something.
I was going to ask Joel to comment a little bit on the Aiton family. To me, it's an outstanding family, and perhaps you should just mention.
And you assume that I know sufficient about the Aiton family.
I suspect that. Yeah.
Yes. I've known the Aiton family for all my life, virtually from the time I was aware of persons outside of my immediate nuclear family. I have known the Aitons. They lived 3 feet virtually across a gutter and so on at New Montrose. And they then went to Guyana for a while as Mr. Aiton was working with, I think it's Carifta, I think at the time, or something like that, in Guyana for a couple of years. And then they came back to St. Vincent, went back to school, and then they went off to university and then pursued careers that took them to all parts of the world. In fact, one of them right now is in Kenya and moving on to somewhere to Europe afterwards. But I just want to say that Mr. Clement Aiton, the father, is a son of North Leeward, Spring Village and Coastal to be exact, same as my mother. And they have the same generation, born in the 1920s. And Mrs. Millicent Aiton is from the other side of St. Vincent, from Georgetown, and she was Williams prior to marriage. And she too made her contribution. They, at that time, it was an issue to get into the grammar school and to the girls' high school. And both Mr. Aiton, who attended the grammar school, and his wife, Mrs. Aiton, attended the girls' high school, and they made their contributions. And together they've had 4 sons, no daughters. And it just so happens that the sons, they all have the same initials, CWA Aiton. All beginning with Clement Wilfred Andre Aiton. Then they have Clement, I can't remember Adon's second name now, but Adon Aiton. Don resides in Trinidad. And then you have the twins, Clement Wainwright, Alan Iton, and Clement William Alban Iton, and so forth. And they have excelled in their secondary education and tertiary as well. They've done quite well, attended universities across the globe. And one would have excelled in accounting, finance, and business management. Another in agriculture, and then agricultural marketing and so on with a PhD. And then others would have had done well with first class honors and so forth at universities around, and would have all have master's degrees and so forth. Wayne Iton, he was the general manager of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and then subsequently the general manager of the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange before deciding to retire. I think that he's actually in St. Vincent right now. I think he's supposed to be on Beckway right now, and now, but he makes his contribution in different ways. But he has a deep reservoir of knowledge on things financial, and I believe that it would serve us well to tap in to him once his time and activities allow him to, from time to time, to share his knowledge with the government and people of St. Vincent. I don't think he wants to take on anything that is too strenuous and stressful, but at the same time, it would be a thing if we lose the knowledge that he has to share. His twin brother, as I mentioned, he is in Kenya right now, but he was the registrar at the University of the Chief Registrar of the University of the West Indies, and he was based at Mona campus in Jamaica. So most of the persons who when you get your university degree from the UWI, you'll see that one of the signatories has been, until recently, CWA Iton. And that happens just to be one of the Iton, and from a graduate, or still a member of the illustrious New Montrose community. And sometime, Pijan, I would like to talk about New Montrose. So he was also living in Trinidad for quite some time, also at UWI. And I just happened to see a photo of a longtime friend of the Itons and classmate, and also of my elder brother, was Justice Adrian Saunders. He was at UWI in Jamaica a few days ago, and he was standing in front of the C. William Iton Meeting Lounge, so named at UWI. So his legacy remains there, not just in tangible way through the halls and so on, and across the campus at Mona and throughout, but it is there for all to see, to recognize his contribution to university education in the Caribbean. So basically, I think I've covered it. They were they have been excellent at sports, particularly table tennis. In fact, I do recall Will Iton being a national table tennis champion on a couple of occasions, and Wayne has done quite well and so forth. They participated in a number of activities in athletics. I think they were all in Reeves House, and they would have contributed to giving more than their fair share of points to Reeves House at the St. Vincent Grammar School. And I think, like I say, from Mr. Iton, who was very much involved in the government public service in the OECS and within CARICOM, Mrs. Iton played a very pivotal role in regard to welfare development, social development, particularly of young children and so forth. And then the four sons, fantastic family, and I certainly appreciate the fact that I've been privileged to be considered a friend by them.
Well, once I heard the name Iton, I thought it was necessary for our listeners to get a greater sense of the illustrious family from which the person came.
Absolutely. And I think it was important to share.
Yeah, all right. So I've been trying to reach out to Minister Gonzalez, Finance Minister, that is. So still have 5 more minutes. I indicated to him that if it's possible, they have an important activity today, I know, and it may not be quite possible at the time. It may not be convenient for him to call, but I'm hoping that he will be able to take some time out from that particular activity and to call us at around 11:30. If we didn't hear from him, we would go on to, we could then talk about the handing over of the Holiday Inn Express and Suites from the contractors to the government. That activity that took place last night out at Diamond. As we indicated, Joel was there, I was there, and we can talk about about what we saw, what we experienced there, and just to share with our listeners that story about the Holiday Inn Express and Suites. So we hope we do. Well, I hope Minister Gonzalez himself would call and give that. But Joel, in the meantime, yeah.
Yes, in the meantime, I want to mention something else that really started right here just over a year ago. I think it's more than a year ago.
You mean here on Isiotan?
Isiotan.
Oh, okay.
Shucks, I'm losing track of time now, but we discussed.
By the way, somebody's saying to you, well done, Joel.
Oh, okay. Thank you. One of the items?
Well, the name doesn't sound so.
Okay.
Like
All right.
Laborde.
Okay. Great. Thanks. On this program, we spoke about the possibility of, what was the name of the program we talked about, where we said that Vincentians can be involved in patronizing local restaurants and so forth.
Yeah.
I can't remember now the name of the how we had captured it and so forth. But the idea behind it was to get to recognize that the Vincentians are important patrons of the hotels, and the restaurants, whether you cater to tourists primarily, essentially, and so on. But they play an important role as well in the certainly in the profitability and growth of these hospitality facilities. And we were particularly focusing on a time when, in the down season, when the tourists weren't coming to St. Vincent, let us reach out to Vincentians. Yes, we can promote staycations and persons can stay at some hotels and so on in the Grenadines or on the mainland, but they can also go to the restaurants and so on. And there were a number of incentives that were thrown out to get Vincentians to patronize and so on, and that the restaurants would be able to start certain things. So it started then, and we had the discussions. I had made presentations to members of the executive of the Hotel and Tourism Association, also with the SVG Tourism Authority, and so forth. And it was supposed to be dovetailed as well with some ideas held by Minister Carlos James on the very same issue and so forth. So that did not take place then. But I'm happy to announce that it starts today in the Hotel and Tourism Association, in conjunction with other stakeholders, that they're actually having what they call a restaurant week.
Okay.
And it's going to run through the week, and which maybe we can talk about some of the activities that they plan for this week. But it starts with a gala event with informal attire and so on this evening, right? By invitation, but this evening at a hotel on the Villa Coast and so forth. And they're certainly all buoyed up and so on about what they can achieve from this week. And we certainly recommend them highly for going forward with it. And I'm also pleased, Cecil and Pijan, that in a way that we had a little small role to play towards stimulating interest in this. So this is something, if I may say, tap ourselves on the shoulder, that issue at hand. We just don't simply just talk about things, but we also act in certain instances where we can, as you know, a couple of instances in the past.
A number of instances that has happened. Yeah.
And maybe if we can.
Incidentally, if I
Yes.
just say that, I just want to update that we had made a pledge to assist the folks in Union Island with T-shirts. Remember that request, that that appeal that Abdan threw out, and Joel, you were able to mobilize some T-shirts from local business community,
Yes.
and sent them down. I'm happy to say that some came in from a person who was listening to the program from Canada. They came in through me, and they were passed on to Abdan just sometime this week. I can't remember exactly which day, but they were shipped down. Well, they were taken down by his brother to Abdan in Union Island. So another instance of pledges being made here on It's Your Time, and we fulfill. So I just wanted to give that to settle the case of our responding to the appeal made by Abdan, and the folks down there now have, there were some, at least their t-shirts, they're actually polo shirts down there for the men who were, in a way, left out of things, whereas the women were well taken care of, according to what Abdan
Yes,
reported. So yes, So Joel, you were reporting on some other matters, were you?
Yeah, well, I really want to talk about tourism in a significant way, but I would want to wait on the Minister of Finance.
Yes.
Just to say though that if I can just put this in, that we had the issue with the car boat last weekend, right? And we were concerned whether or not the pier was significantly damaged and so forth. Certainly, it prevented the cruise vessel Aurora from remaining in St. Vincent, and as we see in the newspaper that taxi operators and tour operators and so on, they say they have lost potential revenue as a result. And but we saw since then we've seen cruise ships coming in, so at least it's things should be back to normal. There's still some issues with regard to some tow sites that we certainly would like to hear about. Some have been rehabilitated, repaired, and so forth. But we certainly would like to hear more about that. And we have also talked about the road to Fort Charlotte. There are certain exciting possibilities of activity that can take place at Fort Charlotte itself, including reenactments and so forth of our historical past. But the road itself to Fort Charlotte, I think that we got to agree from an objective mind, without necessarily casting blame left, right, or center. But certainly it has taken quite a long time. And I would certainly like to find out when it is going to be completed, in the interest of all those persons who see it as an important part of particularly the cruise tourism industry, and the benefit that it provides for persons involved in tours and so forth. So that is in relation to that. But there are other things.
But in the first place, Joel, I'm sure you guys would agree that it being completed and so on is first and foremost to the benefit of the people who live in that area.
As well. Yeah. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
not even as well.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. In the first place.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
for that reason alone, urgent attention needs to be given to ensure its completion. And again, as you said, added on top of that is the income earning possibilities for those who use the facility up there. Somebody's calling, could well be. I'm not sure. I just missed it. I was thinking it might have been Minister. Gonzalez, I wonder if you would call again soon. It looked, but I didn't, and it could have been him, but I just missed it.
Okay.
But in the meantime, yes.
Yeah. So just to add on to that, and something to say that I have also spoken about the road, the Enhams to Belmont or Fair Hall Road, and that a project been undertaken by KDL. It has been going since before COVID and so forth. It has taken a very, very long time. And I recall the Prime Minister saying on radio that if certain things weren't done by June of 2024, that he'll look to turn it over to Braxa. That didn't happen because KDL had given a new undertaking that they're going to redouble their efforts and so forth to get the road. And I understand there's a problem with a shortage of aggregate and so forth, but I am happy to report that a significant work has been done on the road recently, and it is likely, based on what the chief engineer involved in the project said to me a couple of days ago, that they're likely to complete this project by the end of November. Even if it goes into early December, to my mind, it's where you can say, at last, thank you very much. And it certainly would mean a lot. Now, this road by itself is not just a case of resurfacing or anything like that. They had to put in new drains, widen the road in several areas, and it provides a nice link road from the interior. The persons from Belmont, Fair Hall, even like in Lacroix and so forth, that if they want to come across over to Diamond and so forth, they can use this road. Or even if you're going to the airport, it's a road that you can use quite easily and safely and so forth. And to go left or right into Kingstown from Diamond, or left to Argyle, and or just participate or partake of what Diamond, the developing Diamond, has to offer, and it's a very important rate, as well as to the residents of the area. So it's certainly gratifying to hear, and I do believe that we'll take the engineer at his word that within a couple of weeks that this project will be finally complete.
Well, I hope he sees. I hope we can take his word. But it'd be good if Minister Gonzalez calls in, and we can ask him specifically about that as well. So
and I'll think he may also wish to put in a comment about the roads in Calico.
Yeah.
Because I also spoke last evening with one of the road contractors, and saying that he had some issues with aggregate, but they reached a particular point because the work seemed very slow, as if it's going slow when they're dealing with the drains, right? But that takes up the time. But the drains in the Calico area, as far as I'm aware, are pretty much now complete.
Yes.
So now, question: once you redundant aggregate, you grade, you roll, you compact, and then you put down the asphalt. That period of time is relatively short, assuming. So that would be the thing. So it's a indication of the nature of development of the country, and sometimes these things do happen. Now, you've heard the Prime Minister say, Cecil and Pijan, about the shortage of workers, right? We have also, all of us have seen all these trucks on the road and so forth. We have seen it like in Calico or in Villa Flat recently. I saw on display new road or agricultural road equipment and so on for sale. I assume for sale and so on. And so equipment is coming in and so on for projects here. And this is one of the things with development, is that yes, we want these things to happen, but there are a number of things have to line up. It's one thing to design a project, another thing is to raise the capital and so forth. But then the execution, the implementation, there are a number of things get in the way, and it's a good position sort of to be in if you can get it resolved fairly quickly, because it speaks about the pace of development. It's a problem that I know that Nigeria, for example, had, back in the 1970s and 80s and so on, after the oil boom and so forth. You remember the Arab oil weapon and so on. Nigeria also and so forth. And then there was a time in Nigeria where ships, they couldn't offload all the equipment on there. There in Lagos, in harbor, for quite a while. So that's the problem. Now, some of us also saw as well, it was on TikTok, it's on, it's all over social media, the president of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali, speaking with ministers, permanent secretaries, road contractors, and other projects and so forth. Now, some persons saw it as being a dressing down of including his ministers and so forth. And this is something, I think he called a meeting for 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And that those who got there late were locked out at the gate or something like that, including the minister and so on. So it seemed a little bit harsh and so forth. But maybe I raise it in the sense that it speaks to a problem that Guyana is experiencing now, that with the oil money and so on, and the pace at which they want to push development, a number of things are not lining up to go along with the projects that they want for implementation and so on. And we in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we want to ensure that we achieve a certain degree of development, ensuring that we have the resources, human and otherwise, to get these things done. Because we don't want things to be in so much of a sequential thing where you have to wait for activity A and B to be completed before you can even start activity C, and so forth. When C and D or C and F, and when some of these things should be happening on a parallel lines, and that is a problem. So when you put it down on paper and you prepare your critical part and whatever else, and then you may say, okay, take it into consideration is where there's sufficient slack time and zero slack time in terms of the various activities. We can get this done in 18 months. But when you end up, because of a problem where one activity can't start before another one is completed, you end 18 months ends up becoming 8 years and 9 years. And we don't want that, especially at our ages, Cecil, that we don't want that. We want to be able to say that if this can be done, that we can, and you say 18 months at the very most, atmospheric phenomenon being under consideration. That should be 19 or 20 months at most, and so forth. And this is what we have. And this is because we want to get the pace of development going at a particular rate. And this is a challenge that some governments have experienced. Maybe it's been experienced right here in St. Vincent and Grenadines. I do believe it's something that we are experiencing, but it seems evident that that is the challenge that Guyana has been having as well. And if all of us, and as the Prime Minister spoke last evening, I mentioned again about the education, really important to have the human capital and so on to help execute this thing. And then to the human capital, not just to execute the projects, but to manage the results of the project. And for example, like in this case, like we have the AIA with local talent, the hotel, the Holiday Inn and Suites, local talent, the SVGTA, local talent, so on. So these are good, but that is only one element, and there are about 5 or 6 elements that all have to line up and so on to make sure that we get the things flow in a nice way, not just one after the other, but one along with each other, step by step together for the development of the people and our just general well-being and happiness about being Vincentians and loving this earth, whether we live temporarily in Boston, New York, Toronto, or Laventille, that this is our homeland and we like the progress that we've been seeing as a challenge that we will have going forward.
Well, as the PM said last evening, Joel, and you were there, we are not better than anybody. but nobody's better than us. So, particularly in respect to the management of our own facilities and our own process here, we are confident and we have the ability to do what needs to be done. And what we need to do is just grab the opportunity and make it come through. So that's where we are in terms of our effort and at developing our country. And by the way, as you have indicated, Joel, development does not happen in a straight line.
Right.
It's up and down. It's up and down, and we have to try to make sure that the ups are greater than the downs.
Danny Dungs.
Yes, and that's the challenge that we have, and I think we can do it. Yes.
Yeah,
Joel.
I wanted to say as well, right? And I may just say, while we are with the call, we just want to say a comment about like this sign that I read on the dock at Young Island.
Mm-hmm.
What the sign said, Pijan? I can't. When you owe, you must pay or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, some words to that effect. So I just want to make a comment about that. But
that sign. Okay.
Yes, but before speaking to that issue, I just wanted to come as well. The sense of order. So we have to have development plans, development goals. We have short-term projects, long-term projects, and nicely lined out. But we also have to recognize something that we don't put in the matrix and so forth. The whole question of social order, and I see, for example, and key in that, apart from like social mobilization and welfare and so on, is the physical planning department. And this is not to attack anybody or criticize. I'm just making the point that we had an issue at the Massey supermarket at Arnesville some years ago, probably 5 years ago or less, where the vending had become problematic.
Actually, much less than 5 years. It's about 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, just shows, but so as if I just saw that if it was linked even with a previous election and so on, and that a candidate was making a comment prior. So that is why I went back the 5 years, right?
But the concern started to surface strongly then, and that's when the candidate made.
And then it was addressed
about 2 years.
So it was addressed a couple of years ago. And so the signs were put up and so forth. Now, then, one person, two persons came back selling coconut water, selling this, selling plum, selling whatever and so forth. And we're almost back to where we were 5 years ago. And I said to myself, no, it is not a case where we don't want persons to make a living. And if it is a case to say, well, okay, you know what? Apart from Massey, why don't we have some 10 kiosks, right? Built, say, by the government or whatever municipal authority for the government. Arnesville doesn't have a tongue board per se, but I don't know who's responsible for Arnesville generally, to be honest. But the way you can put up these kiosks and say that these kiosks are owned by the state or owned by some agency, and that they can get to rent it for a small thing per month, because it's really not about making money, but it's just to make sure that there's order. And that these, apart from these 10 kiosks, so you have provided a facility for the persons who have been there before and nobody else. So you can't just come now and block it and do all sort of things. So it's not a case where you're not giving consideration to the welfare of persons who are struggling to make a living and so on. So that is being addressed. I say 10 kiosks, maybe it could be 50, it could be more, whatever the case might be. But it can come back to where it is. I say that to say also we have an issue at the Young Island dock. And the Young Island dock is actually owned by the Young Island Resort. But persons may go there, park there for whatever reason. They may be going over to Young Island for lunch or whatever, or they might be doing.
But when you say it's owned by the Young Island Resort, you mean the land, the property?
The land,
on
even
the
in
side
the,
of
on the
St. Vincent side.
Vincent side, yes.
It's owned by.
That is what I'm advising,
Okay.
including the where the person's park, and there's a garage, and there's a and so forth. There's
Yeah, okay.
and so forth. So that is, and then the jetty, of course, naturally they have to put that. So the two jetties, and you know what they suffered after burial and so forth. But person started to vend there, right? And then it became very untidy. So here you have persons, tourists, visitors coming to stay in St. Vincent and Grenadines. They're going to Young Island, and they have to encounter that kind of what I would consider less than appropriate order. I'm not saying that they should not have a vendor selling fruits and whatever, but it must, if it is to take, it must be arranged with permission, with authority, and in a particular set of circumstances given consideration. So they have persons who would be at Young Island. They may want to leave Young Island and come over to Mangoes and any of the other restaurants in the area for lunch, dinner, a drink, or whatever the case may be. And that is what they have to encounter. And then they have persons lighting there and the chance and risk and so forth. So it is, again, so you have this thing happening at the dock. This thing meaning the clear, evident murder of an individual with the sign. To me, it's almost, it's a bit on the shocking side. But it's not necessarily a coincidence that it actually took place there. And it's not necessarily a thing that you get the information as to the person and so forth. I don't have any more information to share on that side. I have anything to say. All I just want to say, basically, that we have to be able to ensure that the issue like at the Young Island dock on the Villa side, that things like that are addressed. I'm not saying to move persons, but there may be persons just like just like you have vendors in Kingston who have been selling from a tree for years, and everybody happy and comfortable with that. So maybe an arrangement could be made. Same thing at Massey at Anna's Vale. And so those things can be addressed. And I just say that these are some of the things that we want to put in place. My last comment on this is that last evening, after attending the function, I was parked outside on the road towards St. Vincent Beach. And there were some, let's say there was a happening, which I don't necessarily want to disclose on air, that raises some alarm bells. And it basically says that what is needed is that we may need to ensure that there's security, better lighting, better security, bearing in mind that there's not too far away, that there are certain events that would have taken place less than half a mile away in that community a few years ago. So we want to be able to address that. I can speak about it off air, but I'm just saying that as we build and we spend $60 million to build a hotel, and we want to make a contribution to St. Vincent and Grenadines, employ 60 persons, and let revenue come in directly and indirectly. We want to be able to address these little things. And sometimes some of these little things could be better lighting and better patrol, not just within the compound, but also immediately outside the compound.
Yeah. Again, unfortunately, we haven't had that call from Minister Gonzalez as yet, and we're hoping that he will still call us. But even while we wait, and perhaps we may want to, but even while we wait, Joel just stepped up, but I wanted to make a comment in response to some of the things he just said. But a call is coming now, could well be Minister. Good morning, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Cecil. How are you?
Minister Gonzalez, good to hear your voice, man. I just
hear you. I know I had promised to call you earlier, but as you know, we are in a the party is in a meeting at the moment today, and it was a discussion that I couldn't break away from immediately. So I had to wait for a break in the discussion to give you a ring.
Right, understood, and that's fair enough. Quite understandable and reasonable. Yes, we are happy to have you. We were tempted in a way to say many, many good things about what we experienced last night, but we thought the best person to say it, and the person who said it better than us, will be you. And in fact,
why is that? Because he's the baby father?
Well, I don't know. We were told that you are the father of the baby, but it'd be many babies in that area. There's so many babies in that particular area.
Well, I tell you something. First of all, it was good to see you, Cecil, and Joel at the opening. I don't know how you leave home, Pigeon. I don't know what was going on there. I only saw 2/3 of the issues at hand, team. But the truth of the matter is that a lot has been happening in that area, and flatland, as we all know, flatland that is owned by the state is in scarce supply in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have to plan with some degree of foresight and vision and discipline what it is we want to do with those few pieces of good land for that type of activity that we have in our possession. And you will remember, and a lot of people mentioned it yesterday during the ceremony, that just a couple of years ago, there wasn't a great deal happening in Diamond. It was mainly cattle. It had its past with the Diamond Dairy. It had some false start under the NDP where they planned to have a biscuit factory or something there that was going to hire 600 people. That never happened. And then it had just become, well, there was some informal settlement that was starting to crop up, and that had to be taken care of. And the government kept that land vacant because we believe that it could be useful land for development or for various things. And you see that in just a few years. I mean, if you were there 5, 6, 7 years ago, and you came back today to Diamond, if you've been overseas, living overseas, and you're from the area and you come back to Diamond, no, you wouldn't recognize it. There is the Couriers distribution facility. There's a hardware store. There's a pharmacy. There is the National Properties Building. There's a supermarket. There's the St. Vincent Beach Stadium. There is the Tourism Hospitality School. There is the National Center for the Center of Excellence for Technology. Under construction at the St. Vincent Beach Stadium right now is the athletes building, the administrative and athletes locker room. On the hill under construction is a brand new community center. And what we went to celebrate yesterday was the handing over of what is really a quite special hotel. And I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but based on the comments I heard yesterday from people who were at the handing over ceremony, people are very impressed with the quality and the feel of that particular hotel. And all of that, everything that I just listed there, has happened in the last half dozen years or so. And it's really a remarkable transformation that's taking place there. And we think that Diamond is really going to be going forward.
If I may just interrupt as well, Mr. Minister, you may also wish to add Maya Sweets and Pitmaster.
That's right. That's right. Just around the corner is Pitmaster, which is a fine restaurant. In fact, I'm talking to Magavan Toby, who is the proprietor, to see if we can get them to be opened for long hours and more regularly, because Magavan is also the owner of Reliable Construction, a major contractor in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who's very busy with the amount of work that we have going on in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and he's trying to split himself between his two loves of being a restaurateur and also being a major contractor. But there's a lot happening. The Maya Suites, and you come a little bit further around the corner, if you leave that area, we're at Hotel Alexandrina right now, that has expanded and so on. So there's a lot happening, but that Diamond, that core area of Diamond is really, really transforming rapidly, very, very rapidly. and the Holiday Inn is a big part of it. We had decided, as I had mentioned yesterday, when the government was trying to do its part in ramping up room stock, and this is something that we've studied. A lot of the countries around the Caribbean, when they first got into mass tourism, the state played a role in building up room stock. And then over time, sometimes the state divests itself, sometimes the state remains involved. But the initial shift into mass tourism requires a push from the state. So if you look in Barbados, you see they had the Hilton Hotel, they had other hotels. I'm blanking on the name.
Haywood's down
Hotel was once Haywood.
Yeah.
Exactly. There were a number of hotels that the Barbadian government owned or began in the early days of its tourism development because it's important to get the rooms up quickly while the private sector is still trying to analyze the feasibility and to get accurate data to base their projections and all the rest of it. And the finance is not forthcoming because the financing in ecosystem is not used to funding large hotels yet in those places. The state has to play a role. It happened in Antigua and Barbuda. There are a number of state-owned hotels. There's still hotels in Antigua and Barbuda owned by the state. It happened in the Bahamas and around the region. And we realized that given where we were coming from with room stock, and given the need to add, 1,000 rooms quickly to the hotel stock in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we had to play a role. When we spoke to the airlines after we built while we were building the Argyle International Airport and thereafter, they were all saying, look, maybe we can come once a week. It's difficult to come more often than that with the limited number of rooms that you have in the country because these people, when they come in, they're going to need somewhere to stay. And, if we do once a week, maybe twice a week, we can get your diaspora people to come home. But to get real numbers of tourists, who don't have a native connection to the country, we're going to need hotels. And we need more rooms. We need more rooms. That's a mantra that we heard from the hospitality industry, from the aircraft, from the airlines industry, and all the rest of it. So we realized we had this role to play to either attract private sector hoteliers or to ourselves finance fully or partially hotels in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we did a lot of work to bring Sandals to Bookament Bay. That was not work that involved money by the government, although it did involve concessions and incentives. But it involved a lot of just hard leather on the ground, a lot of work, a lot of trips to Jamaica and Miami, and a lot of invitations for them to come down, and a lot of selling of the destination and the potential of the destination. That was one leg of it. And in this initial invitation of hotels into St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we thought that what was really critical for the government, if the government was going to play a role that didn't compete with the existing private sector or didn't crowd out the existing developments that were happening in the private sector, we should be focusing on major brands that had name recognition internationally, major brands that had a built-in and loyal client base, and major brands that have their own money to assist us in the advertising of the destination, so that we could see the name St. Vincent and the Grenadines on television and in magazines and on the internet and all the rest of it. So we thought that where we could add value was trying to bring some big brand names into the country. Sandals was the first visible success, but the outreach to Sandals, the outreach to Holiday Inn, and the outreach to the Marriott brand all happened at the same time, and they're moving at different paces for various reasons, but it was all born of the same strategy to reach out to these major brands and try to get them to come set up shop in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I was tasked with spending a lot of time speaking to all of these hotel chains at different levels, and we thought that since our resources are limited, we should be trying to establish at least one major brand at each of these important price points. And those price points would be 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. And at the 5-star level, we have the Sandals Resort. At the 4-star level, we're going to have the Marriott Resort. And at the 3-star level, which is what business travelers look for, a good, clean, hospitable brand, we thought that the Holiday Inn brand and the Holiday Inn Express chain in particular would be useful. And so that whatever your price point, whatever your desire in coming to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there would be at least one major brand there to accommodate you. So if you're coming for the romantic couples vacation, maybe you're going to propose to your girlfriend or your boyfriend and you're going to have a romantic getaway, there's Sandals can do that. If the family is coming for a family resort vacation of high quality, there's the Marriott is that. If you're a business traveler or if you're a value-minded traveler or if you're coming in town for sports or you're coming in town for one of our festivals, carnival and the like, where you're going to be spending some time in the hotel, but you're also going to be spending a lot of time off the hotel, in the country. We thought that the Holiday Inn Express would be valuable there. And we did a lot of screening of competing brands. We didn't just jump into bed with Holiday Inn Express and Marriott. When we were discussing Marriott, we spoke to the Hyatt, we spoke to the Hilton. They all came to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and made their pitches. We decided on the Marriott. When we were dealing with Holiday Inn Express, we spoke to the Radisson Group. We spoke to the other brands within the chain. I'm not remembering all the Comfort Inn and all of these other brands. We spoke to them. They came to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We went to them, and we decided again on the Holiday Inn Express brand. Spoke to managers of these hotels in the region to understand the economics of operating one of these franchise hotels. We traveled to the United States. We visited Holiday Inn Expresses in operation all across states in the United States. We met with their headquarters and all the rest of it. And then we got their design and we chose the design elements that we thought would work best for what we were trying to build. We handed those design elements off to our local team here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who refined them, modified them for our own context and climate, and built what we think is really, really a special hotel. I'm very proud of how it's turned out. I'm very proud of how it looks. And the people in the Holiday Inn company who are also in town, doing their final checks of the IT system and all of these types of things. They're also very impressed with the building. We made a few tweaks in the design that make the place feel a little bit more luxurious than the typical Holiday Inn Express. You don't usually use luxurious and Holiday Inn Express together in the same sentence, but we think that we've made a few tweaks to make the place feel a little bit more welcoming, a little bit more upscale, and a little bit bigger and airier than you would typically experience in one of these hotels. If you've been to a Holiday Inn Express before, I know a lot of people use the one in Trinidad and Tobago, which is close to the airport, and a lot of people have stopped at Holiday Inn Expresses near to airports all around the world. I think if you've been to one before and you come and visit this one, you would agree objectively that it's just that much better, that much more upscale than the typical one, and we think it's going to fit a beautiful niche. It's 93 rooms. We could have made it a few more rooms, but we sacrificed a few rooms so that we could have a bigger conference center. We thought a conference center would be important. We sacrificed another room because we thought that we should have a larger gymnasium in the facility. And we've, as the Prime Minister said, we wanted to ensure that we had a nice outdoor space, so the swimming pool and a pool house and the like. So we've made a few tweaks, we've made a few adjustments, but we think we have something that's specially tailored for what we need right now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. 93 rooms, 59,000 square feet of floor space. It cost us just about $22 million US. We had projected that it would be about 20, but the there was a lot of work that we had to do in foundation and drainage because that area has a tendency to retain water. So we had to do a lot of work with drainage to connect our drainage system to the drainage system that we'd already built for the St. Vincent Beach Stadium. And we had some work to do in foundation that cost us a little bit more money. What the Prime Minister wanted for the pool and the pool house cost a little bit more money than the standard design. But I think all of those extra costs add to the value of the resort, and we're really happy with it. We've hired a local team to manage. We've hired all local staff. So this is built by locals. It is managed by locals, and it is staffed by locals entirely. It's not a situation where you have 1 or 2 or 5 executives who are from somewhere else. This is an entirely locally financed, locally built, and locally staffed and locally run facility. And the other element that I hope was recognized yesterday is the proximity of the hotel to the tourism institute, the hospitality school of the St. Vincent and Grenadines Community College, which is literally footsteps away from the hotel. And the fact that our general manager of the hotel, Sharon Francis, was a former lecturer in hospitality at that same community college. And we have made sure to have linkages between that hotel and the community college so that students in hospitality will have an opportunity to understand how a hotel really operates in real time and in real life. And we're going to organize internships and other programs so that the students can learn hospitality in a hands-on way using the Holiday Inn Express as a tool for learning.
All right. Well, first of all, Minister, let me also testify that I stayed at Holiday Inn facilities in Trinidad and in the UK in Stansted, and they can't compare to the one at Diamond from what I see.
Can't touch it, man. I agree with you.
Jolly, what did it come?
Yeah, well, I think it was either the Minister Gonsalves or Prime Minister Gonsalves. Someone made a comment that is not just a facility for guests visiting from abroad or person with different passports, but yes, I think the Prime Minister mentioned also that
yes.
The farming community, you can bring the children there on a Sunday, and I don't know what fee you have to pay, but you can utilize the facilities. And I just wanted to add that I know from my many days and weekends in Barbados and Trinidad that Barbadians patronize the Hilton Hotel, so the breakfast and brunch, as well as the Marriott Hotel and so on. And in Trinidad, the same thing applies, and so on. So we would encourage Vincentians to also look at the possible. Don't see it as something is out there for people who look different from us or have a different passport, but participate. Use it as well for staycation if you so wish, and so on.
Absolutely.
It's a wonderful facility, and the atmosphere is just right.
So Minister, I want to congratulate you and the government, but you in particular, for doing the kind of monitor that you do on all these projects, because it has turned out to be a wonderful product for Vincentians and for the hospitality industry. So again, commendation to you, Minister Gonsalves. But I want to ask a couple of things. First of all, I noticed that it was drawn to my attention actually, that the road leading to the facility from the main road, there are some areas that need to be addressed, and also those trailer trucks, trailer, whatever they call them, that line the street leading to the St. Vincent Beach Athletic
Stadium.
Yeah.
Yes.
I again, people have raised those as a concern that need to be addressed, because they seem to think it takes away from the beauty of the Holiday Inn Express. So I want to ask if there are plans to deal with those things.
I think whoever raised those issues are absolutely right. The first one, I'll take them in turn. The first one about the road leading to the facility. there are a couple areas there that need to be patched, and Braxa has been notified. We didn't want to do that when we still had heavy trucks going in and out to deal with construction. And secondly, there was quite a bit of conversation at the time about maybe there's a need right at the entrance there to turn off where the supermarket is. Maybe there's a need for some sort of a roundabout, because there'll be, as you know, people drive up that road very, very quickly.
Sure. Yes.
That road is a bit of a highway heading past Diamond, and there'll be a lot of people now making that left or right turn depending on where you're coming from. If you're coming from the airport as a taxi man or as a guest to the hotel, it would be a left turn. If you're coming from town, it'd be a right turn. And going in and out of that facility, they thought that the increased traffic might necessitate a roundabout. So studies were being done there at the time, and we were considering whether or not it was necessary to, as part of the hotel project, to add a roundabout there. Ultimately, the designs are done, but the wisdom from traffic is that we should monitor it for a while, take some data, and see if we shouldn't be anecdotal about it. We should see if the actual volume of vehicles necessitates that sort of a change. So because we had those two things in mind, A, we didn't want to fix a road while the big heavy trucks were driving in to build that, and also some work they're doing at St. Vincent Beach. And B, we didn't know if we were going to change the whole flow of the road to deal with a roundabout. So there was a bit of a pause there. But the decision now is to keep everything as is, with just some better signage and some cautions to slow and turn and all the rest of it. So that the road repair will be ongoing. Now, the second issue which you raised, which is the issue of trailers, is an issue that is a very, very serious and increasingly vexing challenge that we're facing here. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, it's a challenge that is falling in the hands of Hans King and National Properties increasingly. If you remember, a few months ago, the tarmac in Arnesville was littered with trailers. There were a lot of trailers running up and down the length of the tarmac, and every once in a while, you still see some there. And that happens to be National Properties land. And I actually called the manager of National Properties, Hans King, and said, listen, man, you have to get the police to get this thing under control. There are a lot of people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines who are purchasing these trailers to do business, but that don't have the land space themselves on their own property to store the trailers. So what they do is they take the trailers and they leave them on government land. And then when they get a job, they get the rig and they come and they hook it up to that trailer, and they go and they take whatever container they want to take here or there. And then they take the trailer back and leave it on government land. And it had been a problem at the tarmac. Hans King mobilized, he notified the trailer owners, he got the police involved. But what has happened since he cleared them from there is that people have started leaving them now behind the Holiday Inn Express on the road between the Holiday Inn and the St. Vincent Beach Stadium. So he and I had a conversation about this very same issue just a week or two ago, and he's once again giving notice to the owners of those trailers and asking the police to get involved in moving some of these things. It is entirely irrational to think that, and we welcome the business. We welcome that people are entrepreneurial and they want to get involved in the haulage of cargo. We understand that as the economy is growing, construction and commerce is growing, there's a greater need for trailers to be moved here and there from the port. But if you're getting into that business, you cannot expect that you will get free storage of your trailer on government land wherever you decide to park it. There were trailers, if you start heading out of Kingstown, where National Properties is a lovely hard court in West Kingstown that was built, and on that deep corner there were always two trailers there. If you head down to where you guys go, if you head down to Camden Park, sometimes on the corners as you turn to go to the radio station there when you're turning right away from ECGC, sometimes you meet trailers there. And what we're trying to impress on people is, by all means, do your business. But if you're bringing in something that is too big to fit in your yard or your garage, you're going to have to organize a reasonable space where you can put these things. You might have to pay a little money to store these things somewhere. But you cannot expect that it is the government's job to store these things wherever you decide to drop them. And so I agree with whoever made that observation to you, and it's something that we're on top of, and it's something that Hans King unfortunately is having to deal with again, because technically it's his land, it's national properties land that people are leaving these things on, and that he's gotten the police involved. So we hope to have those items moved pretty soon.
Thank you for that update, Minister. Minister, similarly, somebody wants me to ask you about the administrative, give an update on the administrative building for the St. Vincent Beach Stadium, and also the state of the grass, the work that was done recently. What is the state of the grass in?
Okay. If you've been to the St. Vincent Beach Stadium recently, you'll realize that the construction of the admin building and the athletes locker room building, that building all in all, is now in the second floor. They've come out of foundation. They've run the blocks for the first floor. They've cast the roof there, for the first floor, and now they're going up onto the second floor. And just for your information, essentially, the first floor of the building is where, if you walk into the building, turn right will be the male section, and turn left will be the female section. That will be lockers, showers, exercise facilities for the athletes. And then as you go upstairs, they're largely offices and admin buildings, although upstairs there's also an area for drug testing and on all the things you need to be certified as a first class certified athletic track. So the downstairs is mainly where the athletes will be, and the upstairs is mainly where the officials will be, and also some staff for the stadium. I am making a plug. This is now Camilo Gonzalez speaking. This is not in any way the government speaking, so I don't want anybody to say that the government is saying this, but I am hoping that we find some way to remember the late Dyke Cato at that building.
That's right.
He was instrumental in the development of the track. He was the man who understood the laying of the track. He was the groundskeeper for the track. He knew more about that track than anybody except maybe the engineers who built it. And unfortunately, he passed after a long struggle with illness. But I'm hoping that we find a way to recognize his contribution there. And I think that bill, I'm not saying to name the building after him, although that would be fine in my book, but I'm hoping that we find a way to recognize him somewhere down there at the facility. My understanding from the contractor is that they will finish the structure within the next 2 months, and that's not the completed building. They'll finish, the block work and the electrical and the plumbing, and then they go into the finishing, and we're hoping to have the completed building sometime around April or May of next year. That's what we're projecting currently for that building. What was the other one you were asking?
The grassing of the playing area.
The grass, yes. So what we've done is we have hired the same company. It's a company out of Trinidad and Tobago. The same company that did the grass at the Arnesvale Cricket Stadium and did such a wonderful job in getting the outfield ready for World Cup. Based on the skill that they did there, we've asked them to perform similar magic on the grass at the St. Vincent Beach Stadium. So the first step there is to essentially poison the bad grass and let the good grass grow. And the good grass is a particular strain of Bermuda grass that has been that we had placed there at the beginning, but because it wasn't well kept, it was overrun by local strains of weeds and other vegetation. So there's a stage where you have to sort of kill off that grass, and then you have to do some intense work to water and plant the Bermuda grass where it's been killed off by the other invasive grasses, and do some digging up of that grass and so on. So that process from start to finish is about a 5-month process, and we're about halfway through that process at the moment. So we have another, probably I would say 2.5 months before that field looks lush and green, like how the Arnesville Cricket Stadium looks. The issue is that it always looks worse before it looks better, because there's a fair amount of work that has to be done to get it right. And I remember panicking a bit when I was visiting Arnesville and looking at the clock ticking down towards World Cup. And I said, boy, the thing is yellow, it's patchy, I don't understand what's going on. And him assuring me that this is how the process works, you know. So I'm not as worried this time. The first chemical coating of the grass has taken place. They've realized that they have to do a second layer of this pesticide. Interestingly, the field, in addition to having different species of grass, the field was overrun by millipedes and centipedes and all sorts of insects, and they're having to do some pest control on the field space as well. But I'm assured that everything is on schedule with that, and so just bear with us. I know it looks like a little yellowed now, it looks a little patchy now, but that is part of the process towards getting it looking perfect. And I think we're about 2 months away from having that level of perfection. So just bear with us on that. It's all part of the process.
Minister, going back to the Holiday Inn Express, what's the prospect going forward?
Well, we are very happy. We're very encouraged, first of all, with the quality of what we've produced. As you said, as I said, as others have said, the building is an extraordinary hotel. We have begun marketing the building for conferences and for sports events. The first occupants of the building in any large scale will be for the cricket that's coming in December, the games between the West Indies and Bangladesh. The entirety of the West Indies and Bangladesh teams will both be staying at the Holiday Inn Express, and they have booked out the entire hotel for that purpose. And one of the benefits of making some of the decisions that we made have already borne fruit. Like I said, we sacrificed a room to build a bigger gym. And one of the things that they were concerned about when we told them we had a Holiday Inn Express was, well, boy, these things don't usually have a very good gym. But when they came and saw the gymnasium space and saw the fact that the stadium was right around the corner, they were very encouraged and thought that they could stay there. The second thing that they wanted was a conference room big enough so that if the team wanted to get together and have a strategy session and watch film and this sort of thing, there would be space for that. And they were satisfied with the quality of what we had there. So that's going to be the first sell-off of the hotel. Coming right on the heels of that, there's a company, I don't know if it's public, so I don't want to say their name on the radio, but a large conglomerate of companies that operates here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines has also booked the hotel in its entirety for some conferences that they want to have. And then there's also a third major booking of a regional, a Caribbean-wide social grouping. Again, I don't know how much, I'm speaking carefully because I don't know how much I'm supposed to be talking about who is coming and who is booking out a hotel room.
Fair enough.
But there are three major bookings of the entire 93-room hotel. And if you stop and think about it for a minute, at 93 rooms, that hotel, we set aside Sandals, which is 300 rooms. That hotel is the largest hotel in St. Vincent, save and except for Sandals. And if you think about what would have been required to get somebody to come and book a 93 rooms, somebody who needed 93 rooms before, it would be a very, very difficult and very, very different logistical experience. You'd have to, a couple over here, a couple over there, get some buses, try to bring them back and forth and stuff. So it has already changed the nature as to what is the upper limit of what we can host here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We think, judging so that in the near term, we have some big bookings booking out the whole hotel. We think that looking at data, and this is one of the reasons why we chose the Holiday Inn Express, looking at the data from all their hotels all across the world, and they have over 1,500 Holiday Inn Expresses around the world. These hotels tend to have very solid and consistent bookings within 12 months of their opening. And so we expect there'll be some ups and downs in the first year of operation. But generally, when you study the pattern of Holiday Inn Express hotels, they tend to level out at very healthy levels of occupancy within 12 months of opening. So they have a sort of a vacation club type membership where if you have points, if you've stayed at Holiday Inn Express hotels in the past, they try to steer some of those guests into the hotels. They have a robust advertising network, and we also have at the hotel, we've hired a marketing and sales officer whose job it will be to also try to drum up business for the hotel. So we think that we're encouraged. We think that we're going to get athletic guests for events that we'll have at the St. Vincent Beach Stadium and other regional athletic events. For example, the Winlock Games, which will be taking place next year in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they also have an interest in the Holiday Inn Express bookings. So we think that there's business for group tourism, there's business for sports tourism, and we think that as the advertising takes place over the next 12 months, there'll be considerable business for the business traveler coming to St. Vincent and the Grenadines as the airlift and the stayover visitors increase in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we're optimistic about where that hotel will be 12 months from now.
Question. Do you anticipate private sector involvement as part of the ownership going forward?
The answer is yes. As I said yesterday in my speech at the handing over ceremony, the government is not particularly interested in becoming a hotelier. We don't want to say, 5 years from now that the state of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a portfolio of, 1,000 rooms. And we, the government, are managing all of these rooms ourselves, because ultimately the efficiencies required to operate a hotel profitably and some of the other things that motivate the state on a day-to-day business are not necessarily compatible. And we don't want to have too much staff. We don't want to have too much of the wrong type of staff. We don't want to be bothered with making sure that there are enough eggs in the hotel or enough pancake batter or that the sheets are getting frayed and we have to buy new sheets and all of these sorts of things. That's not where the government adds value in the operation of a business. So we think that where we add value and where we have added value, and our objective in this entire process is to add room stock. And once the room stock is added, we have to start looking to valuable and useful private sector entities with experience who can operate these things more efficiently and more profitably for us. So we believe, and it is our objective, to have a private sector presence in the Holiday Inn Express sooner rather than later. When we began this process, we wanted to explore farming out the management of this facility to the private sector from day one. And we advertised, we asked for expressions of interest from the private sector. Most of the expressions of interest came from outside of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They came from the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao. They came from Suriname. They came from Miami. And so we advertised again, and then we also went and we spoke to local hoteliers. We went to proprietors of hotels already in existence in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and said, look, man, why don't you, you're already running a hotel here, why don't you consider expanding and running another one? And a few of them said to us, man, I'm busy enough with this. I can't imagine taking on 93 rooms. I'm busy enough with my 20 rooms here. And some of them did express interest, and we went far down the road in negotiations with one local hotelier, and ultimately that hotelier decided that it wasn't a good fit for them at this time. And then a second hotelier was also very interested. We went far down the road with them. And then when they realized the brand standards of the Holiday Inn Express, when they realized the number of boxes they have to check on a weekly basis to respond to quality control things, the amount of data that they would have to share with the parent company to ensure that the hotel was running efficiently, they pulled out. They said it's not something that they're used to doing. You know, they run this thing themselves. It's more sort of organic, the way they operate, and they didn't want to be forced into this sort of very data-driven type of management style. So they pulled out as well at the last minute. And we decided that the best thing to do, rather than take on the Miami-based or the Aruba-based management that was very, very key, is that we run it ourselves locally while we try to position ourselves in the near future to have greater private sector interest. But I want to stress over and over again, the government is not trying to build a portfolio of state-owned hotels. The government is trying to add room stock. And once the room stock is present, we're going to reach out very aggressively to the private sector to see what role the private sector can play in the management and operation and potentially the ownership, if they have the money, of the hotels. Personally, I would love if a valid private sector entity would walk up to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning tomorrow morning with $22 million in their hand. I wouldn't want to make a profit and say, we would love to buy this hotel. I would take that $22 million and build another hotel somewhere else. You know, I would just flip it, because the goal that we're trying to achieve right now is to add room stock. And we have to have as many rooms as possible, as quickly as possible in St. Vincent and the Grenadines if we're going to take advantage of this wonderful moment that we have in tourism growth. So the answer is yes, we want the private sector involved, but we don't want the private sector involved just to say that we have the private sector involved. We want the private sector element involved that can add value, that has experience, or that has a vision that aligns with what we think the tourist experience should be in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But I'm very, very, very open to having the private sector involved sooner rather than later.
Do you see us selling shares on the securities market as part of the process forward?
As part of the process forward with the hotel, or as part of the process forward generally?
Well, the hotel and similar establishment.
I don't know if the Holiday Inn Express would be necessarily a particularly valuable option on the securities market, because there's so many players involved already with the profit of that. You know, the management takes a cut, okay. the franchise owner takes a cut, and so I don't know if it will be attractive as something you could list on the securities exchange. We have explored when we were thinking about the financing arrangements for the Marriott Hotel. We have explored listings on the securities exchange, and in fact we were pretty far down the road in some discussions with some financiers about how that would look, how that would be structured. Ultimately, I think we've settled with some regional investors who have a different financing model to begin that hotel, and we hope that hotel will begin in the first quarter of next year. That is the Marriott. So it's something that we would look. We're not adverse to, but it would have to be a project and a product that makes sense on the securities exchange. I don't think that the Holiday Inn Express, if a discerning investor took a look at that project as an investment on the securities exchange, if it would generate sufficient business in that context.
I have three, in the interest of your time, I have three rapid fire flash questions in relation to the hotel, and then a comment about the Enhams Road as to yes. Where you are. Just quickly, in terms yes. of the facility at Diamond, when is it likely to be on the IHG website so that persons can do their bookings?
The hotel opens officially on the 22nd. I believe IHG indicates that it will be online on the 20th. It depends on when they certify our local IT systems and connection, because the idea is that when you book it on booking.com or holidayinexpress.com or whatever the travel website, expedia.com, that it shows up instantly and blocks the room instantly in our local system. And the IT people from Georgia, from IHG, are in town at the moment finalizing that. And they're looking at a day or two before the official opening date on the 22nd.
Okay, good. With regard to the issue of dinners, because by and large it will be providing breakfast and maybe a late breakfast as well. What would be the arrangement, whether it's for the West Indies and Bangladesh cricket teams or anyone else, any other group staying there? What options are available to them?
Okay, so let me back up a little bit. Event last night, you parked on an empty piece of land directly adjacent to the hotel. Or most people did. I'm sure Joel had VIP access to the back of the hotel. But
I parked on the land. I parked on the land adjacent.
I parked on the road. I have a comment to make about that privately in relation to security issues. Security.
Yes, but originally conceived, we were going to build, we the government, were going to build a restaurant structure directly next to the Holiday Inn Express that would serve not just guests of the Holiday Inn Express, but would serve casual diners, people who wanted to come around, the students maybe at lunchtime from the hospitality school, and people who might be, want a snack after they go to an athletic event at the stadium. We were going to build a hotel right there. Nice, open, casual sort of dining experience that we wanted to put there. We made that decision, and then shortly thereafter, Pitmaster was built just a few footsteps away. And we thought it wouldn't be fair as if Pitmaster was just setting up for us to be setting up another restaurant right next door. And also, as I said, we thought the thing was going to come in at $20 million. It came in at about $22 million, and that's one of the areas where we decided to save some money. We hope, first of all, that the nearest restaurant to them, which is Pitmaster, can increase their service offering time to make that a viable dine-in or take-out establishment. And I'll come back to that point. And we hope that restaurants a little bit further afield will also improve their takeout options. I believe Cecil said he went to the Holiday Inn Express in Trinidad before. When you go to the Holiday Inn Express in Trinidad, at the front desk and sometimes in your room, you see a number of takeout brochures and food ordering brochures. You can get your pizza, you can get your KFC, you can get other more sort of high-end dining options. You dial a number, you order your Chinese food from wherever you're ordering it from, and they deliver the food to you at your room. That is something that our marketing officer and me personally, something that we're involved in very actively with the restaurants within delivery distance of the hotel. So we've spoken as far down as the Villa area, where there is Mint and there is Palki Indian restaurant, coming all the way back up the road where restaurants exist. And we've also spoken to more casual options like KFC to see if they will be willing to produce menus that can be available for guests in those facilities at the Holiday Inn Express, where they can order and get delivered. So that is the near-term solution there, in addition to hoping that guests will, as guests do at a Holiday Inn Express, call a cab, let the taxi man make a money to take them down to the Villa Strip, for example, to get something to eat. The answer to the West Indies Bangladesh issue, and also the issue for the conference that's being held there, is that the hotel has made arrangements with catering. So there will be catered lunches available to those sort of guest experiences where a large number of rooms have been blocked out. So they'll have catering options delivered at hotel, and there's space in the hotel to set up that type of arrangement where people can come and get catered meals. So it depends in the meantime. Additionally, the same piece of land where the government wanted to build the restaurant, adjacent to the hotel, we have begun speaking to existing restaurateurs in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and offering them that space to build a restaurant, and also offering them assistance, because we think, separate and apart from the Holiday Inn Express, it's a good place to have a dining option for the stadium, for the university, the college students that are there, and for casual diners and local diners. We haven't had great take-up yet. Some of them have said, well, that site is too close to my existing restaurant. It would cannibalize sales from my existing restaurant. Others have other challenges that make them not want to do it. But we're still hoping that we can get some interest from the private sector in getting that land for a song and setting up something that we approve there to have another dining option. If they don't, and if the demand becomes so great and the private sector doesn't step up with its delivery options, then we would have to revisit our earlier concept of the state placing a restaurant there and having a private sector entity running. That's the answer for that. I know it's rapid fire, but I think I gave too long an answer for rapid
Yeah,
fire.
okay. I would talk another day about the board and management overall of the thing and another occasion. You don't have to deal with that today. I'll just go straight to the question of the Belmont to Enham's road, where it is now, and are you satisfied with where they have reached after having all those challenges of the past? We know in the present, how satisfied are you?
Well, I hope to be satisfied by the end of the year when the contractors told me that the entire road will be completed. All of the drainage, all of the back walls, everything is complete, and the base material for the road is laid on a good chunk of the road at the moment. They've paved a couple pieces in concrete, and there's base material running a great way down that Enham's Road. Belmont, Glamorgan, Enham's Road. The challenge for the existing driver, if you're trying to drive up and down that road right now, it can be a little bit of rough going, particularly if you're trying to drive up the road. It's a steep hill, and there's a lot of loose material on the road at the moment, which is the sub-base for the paved road. If you're coming down the hill, it's not that much of a challenge, but going up the hill against the grain there, right now is a little bit of a challenge. But DIPCON has been contracted by the Kuwaiti contractors. DIPCON, as I'm advised, has been paid, and it's them who have begun laying the base material for the paving there. And I've been told that the paving of that road, top to bottom, should be completed within the next 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks or so. So check back with me is what I would say. Check back with me in an issues at hand conversation 3 weeks from now, and that's a better time for me to tell you when I'm satisfied.
Okay.
What I am satisfied with is that the drains that have been built are excellent. The drains both there at Enham's and at the Fair Hall Road, which is being built, and paving has begun there by the same DIPCON company. And the drains are of such a depth and width and quality that I believe that the road should last longer, because one of the big problems with those roads is that they're on steep hills, and when the rain falls, the rain runs down the middle of the road and digs up the road. The drains are the game changer there, that to add to life for the roads. The back walls are very important for protection of residents and their properties. So I think that the structural work is good, the engineering is very good, the quality of the work was very good. It's all just taking a little bit too long. But we're at the final stages now. I'll ask the motorists and the residents to just bear with us for these next 3-4 weeks as DIPCON comes down with their Barber Green machine to do the final layer of asphalt on top of the loose base material that's there at the moment.
Okay.
And the Minister, Kadeko, can you give us a quick update on the road?
Yeah. The Calico road work is continuing. It is behind schedule because originally when contracted, that road was to be completed in November of this year, this November here. As you can see, that's not going to happen. They're still doing drains on some of the roads. I spoke to the contractor the day that we had those big rains. What was the day we had the big rains last week or so? Because the river had burst its bank and
Yes.
the same contractor had equipment in Calico, and he very kindly agreed to clear the river for me, or for the people of Calico, not for me. And we had a conversation there about where he was and the progress he was making. He is hoping that he can get the road in its entirety completed in the first 2 weeks of February, but that there'd be multiple roads between now and the first 2 weeks of February that would be concreted. But he wants to walk away with a complete job sometime in the first couple of weeks of February. I don't have a road by road, and that's what people are asking me for. Yeah, I know that the whole thing will finish in February, but what about my road in front of my house? When will that be finished? And I don't have an answer of that level of granularity. And I know that it was ambitious to do all the roads in Calico, and I know that it's inconvenient to do all the roads in Calico, but I think that when it's done, Calico won't have to worry about roads for another 20 years at least, and I think it'll be worth the inconvenience that people are experiencing at the moment.
Back to the Providence Beach Athletic Stadium.
Yes.
Somebody's asking whether or not the sprinkler system will be hooked up to CWSA.
No, we're not going to use the sprinkler system as a connection to CWSA because of the volumes of water that are required. We're not going to connect the sprinkler system to CWSA. What the engineers have done is they've devised a methodology using a pump and a solar-powered pump and the stream that runs between the stadium and the Diamond community, and a system that involves that pump and water tank. So they'll pump water from that stream. It'll go through a brief rudimentary filtration process to take out some of the organic material, and then that water will be the primary water used for the watering of the field.
All right.
Going forward.
Minister,
In the immediate time here now, while the gentleman is working on perfecting the field, we are using some water from the CWSA main. But for the maintenance of the field going forward and sustainability, we're going to use the river water that will be pumped, filtered, put into tanks, and then drive the sprinkler system through those tanks.
all right. Minister, we feel guilty that we've taken you away from the important activity that's taking place. I hope you don't mind. I hope the other folks there
Well,
don't mind.
if the Prime Minister curses me for my absence, I'll blame you.
No.
I'll tell you that now.
Joel.
Yes. And
But we,
I want him to blame two persons because we're hoping that we could still get 10 minutes from your colleague, the Minister of Agriculture, to talk about the Agro-Alba agreement. So if
Okay,
when you
I will-
return, if you can
I'll have him call you. I'm heading in now, and I'll see if we can swap out.
yes.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you very much. And
Thank you very
remember, we have another Isiotan moment sometime not too long from now.
Absolutely. Well, the budget is coming up now. I'm very swamped for the next few weeks with budget, but maybe we can do an immediate pre or post budget discussion about where we are then.
We'd be happy to have you on.
Okay.
then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
Bye.
Yes, that was a good one. Very informative. And our good colleague and friend, he has had all his questions answered. I hope he... Pijan, you coming in?
Just news for the rest of the week.
Well, I hope so. We are always so happy to enable other media to extract information, to share with the rest of the nation on this program.
I am glad that we have added the Holiday Inn Express suites to our stock. And I said, other than Sandals, it's the largest facility that we have. Now, room stock, it has been a limiting factor for our growth. And at the end of last year, I think we just had around under 2,700 rooms available. Now, I do believe by the end of this year, we including apartments targeting visitors and so forth. We should then be able to get over 3,300 thereabouts, and so in terms of room. And based on what we're seeing, it is possible for St. Vincent Grenadines
You'd
to
have
get
to
100,000.
We have a call. It could very well be the minister. Let's see. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome, Minister.
Okay, all right.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
We're good. Permit me to ask a question before you start with your substantive discussion. Did I see you graduate from Open Campus with a degree in agriculture?
Yes. Teacher, I went
Congratulations, sir. I don't know how you made it, but that's a task.
Yes. And,
to be a minister.
It wasn't easy.
See, you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk also. Very good.
Yes, I graduated a postgraduate diploma in agriculture, which now gives me the opportunity to go on to my PhD in a joint field in agriculture, or if I want to model it, because I did a master's in banking and finance law at the University of London already as well.
Okay.
So congrats.
It was yes. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all those persons who supported along the way. They had a lot of field work in it. And I particularly chose the area of climate change and its impact on agriculture and how we're going to remodel extension, because sometimes we speak about climate change in a general way. But how we address climate change has to be done in a very scientific and peculiar manner. And I was really happy to do my thesis on my constituency as to how the farmers in the constituency of South Central Windward are adopting using different mitigation and adaptation strategies. I'll share a copy with you.
Well, sure. Minister, more than that, you would have to come in and let's share the moment on issue at hand with the rest of our. Yes. When it's convenient for you, I don't know. You could let us know, and we'll sort of make space for you.
I will call you and let you know.
Yes. And let me say again, I said it to Minister Gonzalez a while ago. We feel a bit guilty pulling you away from the important activity that you're having now. But I hope the PM don't mind it.
Tell you how important this program is as well.
Well, we appreciate that. So thank you very much for sparing us the time to come on the program. So yes, Joel?
So, we certainly, we got the news, and we find it to be transformative indeed. So we'd like you to share with the nation again this Agro-Alba joint investment arrangement involving the use of you say the number of acres of land and what it means for us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Yes, I want to put everything in context. 3 weeks ago, we got an invitation from the Alba Bank to attend a meeting to address food and nutrition security within the CELAC member states and also members of Alba. And at that meeting, the issue of land as a factor of production was discussed. And I raised the issue that St. Vincent and the Grenadines and other Alba members in the OECS, because of our geographic location, we can be impacted each year by natural disasters, droughts, significant droughts, but particularly hurricanes. And we were thinking whether or not we can get land in Venezuela that can be insulated against tropical cyclonic events. And they recommended that they were going to make an offer for every Alba member state 10,000 hectares of land for each member. We went down to, I had to take the matter to the cabinet, and cabinet approved the very next day. The meeting was a Tuesday, because remember we had parliament, and I asked PM to answer my questions first so I could go to the meeting. The next day was cabinet. Cabinet approved that we enter into the discussion, and then I led a delegation to Venezuela. When we got there, there were 2 parcels of land available. And in the aggregate, it came up to 25,000 acres. But at the end of the conclusion of the meeting, we were able to have access to 35,000 acres of land in Venezuela to produce commodities. And what we started to looking at the agronomics of all of it, we will look at the production of large quantities of livestock, particularly cattle, sheep, goats, and there's a possibility also to grow rice and to invest in commodities like cassava, where you need large expanse of land. And in the discussion with them, because of the low cost of energy there, we wanted to have in Venezuela some semi-processing, so that what is brought to St. Vincent and the Grenadines is already semi-processed using the very cheap cost of electricity there. Now, we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines Vinci Fresh that has significant capacity once you remodel the equipment that is there. And we are aware that the Alba Bank made a significant investment there. But we have never been able to get the throughput in terms of the raw material to be able to access many of the international markets that we have. So Vinci Fresh, everyone would agree, it has an excellent line of products.
True.
But Vinci Fresh and other agro-processors in St. Vincent and the Grenadines would like to have access to more raw material. In the whole discussion, we are using the assistance of the World Bank, the recovery from the hurricane. We are expanding production at home as well, because I know that will be an issue that will be raised. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have currently 18,000 acres of land available for agriculture. A lot of it, you can't use any mechanization, but we can expand, and we're going to work to expand the planting production at home, the banana production at home, the production of vegetables. I see we're doing a lot of work with the production, bringing back to good production the citrus. We're doing some work on that. And we have a significant food import bill, and we have been working with the CARICOM Secretariat to pursue the reduction of the food import bill of the region by 25% by 2025. Of course, it's going to be uneven, but the overall thrust is based on the fundamental principles. You need land, labor, and capital in order to drive investment.
And technology.
And technology. And we are very happy that the Alba Bank, working with the government of Venezuela, has opened this opportunity. Now we are at the stage where we want to frame out how this investment is going to unfold, who are going to be the partners, the role that local farmers will play, different entrepreneurs, building out the business plan, a sustainable business plan, setting up the supply chain, how the goods are going to be moved. Coincidentally, when we came back from the visit, landed at Argyle, the first person we met with, he was in the line coming from somewhere else, is a Venezuelan trained Vincentian, trained in agriculture. From the time he heard about the project, he got excited. He said, I want to be a part of the project. So right now we are sourcing the requisite human resource capacity, because 35,000 acres, you're talking about 1/3 of the land space of St. Vincent and the Grenadines flat. That, Cecil, is significant. And we know in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have seen a significant reduction in the national herd, because we export large quantities of cattle to Grenada. In fact, we are the largest exporter of cattle in the OECS and the largest exporter of livestock because we're exporting pigs now. And the other OECS member states who will want and have requested that we export animals to them. So the whole program, the platform is taking shape. A delegation is expected back in Caracas in the first week of December, and we intend to take persons who may have an interest, a particular interest in investing in whatever enterprise may come out of this to Caracas so that they will be able to see what the development that we are discussing.
Is this only available to St. Vincent in terms of OECS or Eastern Caribbean states? Or
no, it's available to all of the ALBA member states, but we were the first to the table. So because we moved quite quickly after the meeting, we took it straight to Cabinet. Cabinet approved quickly, and we were able to take our delegation there. We were able to see all the lands available and to pick the 2 parcels that we would like to see developed. So there's going to be a call for persons who are trained in agriculture, persons who may have studied in Cuba, Venezuela, or Mexico, have a command of the language, Spanish, to let us mobilize, let us sit at the table, let us have a discussion and come up with a plan as to how do we implement the development of the land. There's a possibility that some workers from here may be interested in going there. They have workers who are already available, who understand the technology that they're utilizing. And I see this from 2 very important standpoints. One, food and nutrition security, because globally it is said by the FAO that if we do not have an exponential increase in the production of food, that by 2050 we will not be able to feed the global population in such a way that there will be significant shortage of food globally. When it's a significant shortage of food, what is going to happen? It has already started. There is going to be an increase in the price of food. And I am already seeing regionally persons who had investments in other sectors, because of the opportunities now for significant returns in agriculture, because you're grappling with the vagaries of climate change, the different wars that are disrupting the supply chains, that they are coming for concessions to invest in agriculture. So, Mr. Pigeon, it appears that we are witnessing currently a renaissance, a sort of rebirth in persons willing to participate in large-scale agriculture. And what we have to do is to ensure that as we see the evolution of this dispensation that is coming upon us, that we avoid things like monocropping, we avoid things like the exploitation of farm workers, the exploitation of farmers through uneven pricing. So we have studied the evolution of agriculture in these islands and in the hemisphere. And what we want to do is to put together a plan that is well structured and conceived.
Is there an initial investment figure just to secure the deal and to lock in the land, even before you deal with the whole broader investment in terms of equipment and crops and so forth?
So that is the discussion that is going to take place when we return to Caracas as to how is it going to be capitalized, what's the scope of the investment. And the proposal came from the ALBA Bank that they will do 2 significant things. One, they will provide a local supply chain for goods produced by St. Vincent in Venezuela to be sold in their country. 30% of the production will remain local, and the other 70% will be exported to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
So what are the implications for transportation between St. Vincent and Venezuela?
Or Venezuela to St.
Or Venezuela to St. Vincent?
Right. So this is an issue that we have to address. There are vessels that are transporting goods. We received, I don't remember, I think it's a year and a half ago, urea from Caracas. And what we want to do is to see how we can set up a veritable supply chain to be able to move the goods from there to here. And it is something that has been called for by many persons. And I remember the Honorable Prime Minister speaking at the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, noting that Marcus Garvey was able to do it. But as sovereign countries, we need to come together and put in place a shipping arrangement that we can move into Ireland. So all of these issues now are coming to the fore because we are seeing the significant inflation in the price of food, and more persons want to invest in not only the production of food, but the movement of food.
Okay, so in terms of timelines, when would we get a development brief after, say, the next round of meetings in Caracas?
Right, so the next round of meetings will take place within the next 2 weeks, but then we go into the Christmas period. So I'm expecting by the middle of January, we should be able to have something that would have gone to the cabinet for, and then have a national discussion on it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Before you go, I have a question to ask you in relation to tomatoes.
Yes.
On the market right now, there are tomatoes fetching no less than $5 for a tomato. And so in one case, I was told that you have to pay as much as $9 plus for a tomato at the supermarket. What is the situation with regard to tomatoes? And if you may wish to comment, the rebirth of bananas and citrus locally.
So there are two things taking place with vegetables. Hurricane Beryl knocked out most of the production the persons are producing on the shade houses. And because of that, persons have to reorder equipment, persons have to get in some instances, the technical capacity to rebuild these shade houses. For those who continue the production of vegetables, tomatoes, lettuce, other types of vegetables, in the open field, because of the increase in the temperature, I don't know if you realize, Mr. Ryan, when you walk out of your house today, it reminds you of the summer days in New York, in Brooklyn, when you were in Brooklyn in July, and you had to be running around because the place was so hot. You had to get out of the heat. Now, it is having a negative impact on the plant, the biology of the plant, and consequently the production of vegetables, and there's a knock-on effect with the price, the cost. Now, for those who we assisted, and this is very important that I say this, for those persons who we assisted who are doing open field production, that is without shade houses, without a covering, they just go in, they plow in the land and plant it. The rains over the last month have caused significant devastation. And it's not every time it rains, I will come out and say, well, there was this level of destruction. But every time you see that heavy downpour, it is in fact is affecting the production of vegetables grown in open fields. There's also, so what we have decided to do is that we launched a program with the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. We have already capitalized it to the $150,000, and we plan to add close to $1 million in the upcoming days. We're working with the government of Taiwan to increase the production of food in your backyard. And this, we believe, is going to be a huge part of the fight to reduce undernourishment in the homes where persons can't find it possible to afford a lot of the vegetables that are now sold at a significantly higher price. It's also will lead to more persons eating what they grow. And we're going to have the farmers now work to focus on providing for the hospitality industry and for general sales. Because sandals, for example, as I always note, it's our first Christmas with sandals. We are all aware that in terms of occupancy, the Christmas period is extremely high. It means it's the first time that we are going to see that significant pressure from the hospitality industry on our locally produced vegetables. And it is coming at a time when we are still recovering from a Category 4 hurricane. So we have two forces there, and we saw the Holiday Inn open yesterday. We are seeing the cruise ships coming, and sometimes they buy a lot of vegetables. I remember about 2 years ago, a cruise ship, they took some stores here in St. Vincent and they said they wanted cucumbers. The morning price for cucumbers and the evening price for cucumbers when the ship left increased by over 500%.
Whoa.
And when we speak about tourism, we must always remember that when we bring the people, that we have to feed them. And it's very interesting that you mentioned about the tomatoes. And for persons who are shopping in the supermarkets, when you listen to the news from Barbados, you listen to the news in Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, throughout all the islands, because there is a global inflation in the cost of production of food, and the entire world is grappling with climate change. Even the imported food is extremely expensive, because you could say that burial was localized. Therefore, locally produced commodities will be higher because the production there was an offset in the production. But when you match it against the food that is coming in from overseas, the global prices have gone up.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we understand the issue of time. There's so much more to talk about, but you have to go back in and we have to go as well. So thank you very much for sharing information on the Agro Alba.
Thank you, and I'll keep you posted.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Minister
thanks.
Cecil, thanks for calling our program.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, this has been a long one today, gentlemen. But as usual, interesting, informative, and we hope that our followers, our listeners have benefited as we have from the program today. We are sorry we weren't able to field questions or comments because the program was so intense. But rest assured that, of course, as usual, we would have a follow-up where we would invite persons to comment. So which means that next week's program, we would do that. But we are at the time when we have gone past the time of concluding the program. So we are just about to do so. Pijan, any final remarks from you? Anything, Joel?
No, just to close by where I started, just to remind persons of the global launch of the Renwick Rose Volume 3 volume collection. And this on Wednesday at, I think it's 8 p.m. our time. And details are available on social media, Searchlight, Facebook, and elsewhere.
Somebody's making a call. Let me just take in. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
You'd have to turn your device down.
What is the name?
Yeah, hold on. You have to turn your device down, and I want to tell you that we just kind of run out of time, but you give a minute or so. But if you know, how come you're calling us? But go ahead. Huh? We'll take you. Go ahead.
I can produce all vegetables on my farm. That hotel in Providence, once. I wrote that in the newspaper some time ago. I don't got a call from anybody. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Take care.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for calling. Didn't quite. Anyway.
Yes,
So
well,
we have come to an
yeah.
end of the. We have come to an end anyway. So we would thank all those persons who called in and who listened to us today, whether through the Star FM and the Garfina platform and the WEFM platforms. We thank you very much, and we want to wish you a very pleasant afternoon and the rest of the week. My name is Cecil Ryan on behalf of Pigeon and Joel and Karen. Good afternoon.